He's got 99 drums, but he's always building another one. How about that?
I had a friend of mine come stop by the shop the other day. And his name was Paul Robertson. And he's the owner of Drums and Rums podcast, where the backbeat meets the spirits. And he's had people on his show like Jared Falk or David R. So I was extremely honored when he asked me to be on his show. So we made it happen, and he came up to one of our episodes. He lives down in Florida.
I get it. So Drums and Rums, we're all about drums and rums. It's pretty simple, but yet it's talking to people that are behind. Either you're a drummer or a rummer, maybe you're a craft distiller of rum, or maybe you're a drum manufacturer, right? And again, we want to have the story. The hook is in the podcast. Is if you're one or the other, we want to know your story. Let's have a conversation.
So he came up. He stayed at one of the Airbnbs we have on the property. I was super excited when he got here. We definitely get into some serious deep talk.
Oh yeah,
don't you think?
That's right. Yeah, I think we got a little bit of everything.
We did.
If this podcast was a Trivia Pursuit game, it did definitely be that, right? It has every category. I think we checked all the boxes, right?
Yes.
So
we went through a whole lot through the drum construction, how to build drums.
Yep.
We talked about a bunch of stuff, man.
And we had a sample a little bit of rum too.
We had a sample of rum.
Georgia rum.
Right?
Yeah,
That's right. Good stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
It's good stuff.
So, yeah.
Good stuff.
So I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hey all, it's Paul from Drums and Rums and the Backbeats Meets the Spirits. We are at episode 99 and we're almost there. Podcast today. I'm really excited here. We're out of the shack, as you can see. We're not at our normal taping location. We're back on another location with our guest. And this is our 5th installment of our May Percussion Manufacturer series. And as you all know, if you listen to the other 4 this month for May, love talking to these guys. You know, the craftsmanship, they have passion in what they're doing and going through and making drums, percussions, you know, paraphernalia, etc., and go through. So we're all the way up here in Georgia. We've left the great state of Florida, drove about 6 hours from South Florida on up here to meet our guest and talk about nothing but drums. So let me welcome to the podcast Michael Outlaw. How you doing, Michael?
Hey, Paul. Nice to be here, man. Well, I am here.
Yeah, that's right.
Nice to be on your show.
All right, yeah.
This is a different feel. It's a different feel.
You're in the other seat, right?
I'm on the other seat.
So, let me just all right, get our little microphone set there. So, yeah, I appreciate you accepting the invite to come on the podcast. Up here again, as you mentioned, you're like, hey, do you want to do this on Zoom or online? That's like. Yeah. Oh no! I want to come up and see what's going on up here.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, there's a lot going on, and want to talk about your manufacturing process, how you got into it, your background, drumming. I guess, and I we'll definitely want to talk a lot because since it's the manufacturer series that we want to talk about what you got into it. So, but first, we can start off. Are you okay?
Freaking dogs! These dogs, they're not gonna stop for the video. Come in.
All right, yeah, there you go. We have an in audience fans here listening, checking out the podcast here. So where else can you get have fans that aren't going to speak a whole lot? Well, they might speak actually, right?
Yeah, so, lets out a big grunt every time he lays down.
That sounds just like me actually when I lay down. So, but before we start, since we're in Georgia. Are you okay to start this off right and have a little spirit?
Sure.
All right. So what I brought with me, because it does have a Georgia tie. All right. So what we've got here, Michael, is a little something of our. Of course, there's nothing wrong with always a red solo cup, right?
Right.
So what we got here is some Richland rum. This is Georgia rum. So we're gonna just make sure I don't. Yeah, let's pour the. Is that good?
All right. Yeah.
All right, there we go. So So a little shout out for some Georgia homemade products there. So this is made up the road here, not far from where we're at, which y'all have to listen to this podcast episode. Check out that we'll be talking with Richland, Karen, and man, I don't usually plug an upcoming episode very often because I'm usually not that organized. But here, cheers.
Cheers. To
All
drums.
Right, so to drums, that's
Yes.
right. And Georgia rums.
Georgia Rums.
So so as we usually try to travel around, 86 proof. Good thing I didn't bring the 115. The cask strength product, right? So all right, so where do we start here? So again, usually we'd start out with somebody's, where a drummer's background, how they got into drumming. I think for this part, it's kind of a, your passion for, woodworking meets your passion for drums and music. How did, again, I'm not quite sure where to start really because, do we want to go down and start off with the drum path or do we want to start off with the, kind of the wood?
Well, I'll just kind of brief it up. So started out riding BMX bikes, building all the half pipes and the ramps, and found myself kind of building more ramps than actually riding the bike. So knew that kind of building woodworking was going to be in my future. So went to a carpentry class, and then I started taking residential carpentry and started doing a lot of just watching tutorials. Norm, even back then, you watch Norm for it wasn't YouTube, where you can just it was just you had to and a lot of times it would come on 3 o'clock in the morning. You had to go and with the VCR tape and all that stuff. So started doing that. And then playing drums. Always kind of been playing drums. And wanted to kind of do a different sound. I wanted to do something different. So what the plan was to make a drum kit, something that I've never seen before. And basically it was just going to build them like you would do a barrel. And there wasn't no jigs or anything. So literally I just kind of got some boards and glued them together and actually nailed them together. And belt sanded them around. It was really rugged. But believe it or not, it actually sounded really good. The band that we was playing with at the time said, "You know what, man? You should start a band and you should call it Outlaw Drums." John Reiser. and I was like, you know what? Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
When I first been following you online and Instagram for a while, and again sometimes it's the name or a handle on social media, and until I've got a little further, I was like, oh, this is legit your name.
Yeah.
It isn't just Outlaw Drums. It's your name. Right?
It's kind of weird because my last name is Outlaw, but yet I was named after the Archangel. My mama named me after Archangel.
Okay. Yeah,
so that's kind of there's a little bit of diversity right there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because he was kind of a little outlaw-y, right?
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. So, and you didn't know you're going to get religion on this podcast too now, right? So learn a whole lot of different things that come up. But so, what came first? Drums, or getting into, or how did you get interested into woodworking? Or you said ramps, right? Because that was really what it was. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't that that you didn't have a relative or somebody in the family that kind of was into woodworking that kind of inspired you a little bit.
Yeah. My sister's boyfriend at the time had a cabinet shop that I went and worked underneath, apprenticed underneath him, and he'd work out of Hart Pine, Keith Lacey. He would go and he would build amazing furniture pieces out of old Hart Pine, and he would check the boards with metal detectors. And I just got really inspired by the act of just creating something and being able to stand back from it and wow, that's really cool. That's what kind of got me going for building.
Okay. So, and I know we were talking before the podcast started, was you were on an episode of, I think it was the shop class or something. There was a couple of, I guess, guys who do machining and wood shop. And you mentioned, what did you mention? Now I lost my train of thought. But going through but you really didn't you didn't really hit shop class really in high school as hard, but it was after, as you mentioned, right? You did some vocational stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't take too much shop stuff in school. I was too worried about riding bikes and chasing girls.
Nothing wrong with that. usually what a teenage boy is all about,
That's
right?
it,
That's right.
you know?
Yeah. So, yeah, and some of the other guests that we've talked to this month, and that's a question I asked, is like, kind of what got you into, making and crafting and manufacturing and this whole thing that they you all do for a living, or yeah, pretty much I think everyone does it for their living. Everyone who we've talked to, but usually it is somewhere in school where. And I don't know if they offer it, and then maybe it depends on where you are in the country too. Because I was originally went mostly to school up north, but then when I moved to Florida, I didn't get the same sense, and maybe it was more that South or Central Florida was they didn't have as much of the push on shop class as we did up north, and we were taking middle school really was where I took wood shop, or you can also take a metal shop class, and again most kids were. Boys and girls are running machines, carving out their names and staining it, and that's pretty much some of the extent of it. But those who are interested in take it further, but it kind of lost a little bit. I think we're probably roughly maybe the same age or so ish.
41.
Okay, so so we're in. I don't know if they offer it much anymore. I mean, it's
not to the extent of that. Not
right.
Like table saws and some, that I know of. The shop. I didn't ever take it, so I didn't really know. I wish I would have taken it back in the day, because they was learning how to build, all kinds of stuff. I did at one point. I did kind of go and judge like a cabinet building course one time for some of the students at the college. But other than that,
so. Yeah, and maybe nowadays they don't offer it as much to kids in school because you're running machines at the under the age of 18, OSHA and things like that. Probably.
Well, a table saw don't play. It will cut your finger off and not even. I mean, it will just and it's gone. And it's easy too.
They don't have those smart saws now where you know the difference between a finger and a.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, but they're probably not cheap for schools to afford it, right?
Once that thing goes up, it messes the saw up. So that'd be pretty expensive too. A finger versus a saw.
Yeah, hey, that's why God gave you 10 fingers, right?
You got 10
that's
of them.
Right. Yeah, well, you don't need all of them, really. As we were just talking about my hand injury, right? So, so that's what got you into was making ramps, and then obviously, again, it was out of necessity. There was a reason why you got into it was because you were making ramps, BMX ramps, and learning that, and
I get fascinated too about making wood bend, making wood curve.
Yeah.
That kind of because there's always a kind of a struggle too,
Right.
Making a piece of plywood bend, especially if it's real thick.
Right, and that's definitely what this is what the interesting part is, that everything you're doing is round, right?
Yeah,
It has to bend.
They fascinated me, right? And that's why I kind of went to drums, And Matt Hoffman is the man.
The BMX guy, right?
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So after high school, taking an apprenticeship with your sister's boyfriend, doing cabinet making, then you went on to said, all right, I'm going to take this further and with vocational.
Yep, so graduated from that, then started working, immediately started working, like I said, apprenticeship, and then after that, we started building like really nice $100,000 kitchens. I mean, these were nice, really nice kitchens that were elaborate, and really kind of started to do that. Started going down the cabinet making. But at the same time, I started to be introduced. I went to my sister's house, and they had a really nice drum set up in there at her house, because she would literally open up her house for her son to, at that time, for band practice. And this was a heavy duty band. Like, they were loud. I mean, yeah. And the whole fascination with drums kind of started at that time. Threshold, that was the name of the band originally.
There you go. Shout out to them. They still around?
Yes. Well, they had to change their name. I think they're the Giving In now. Yeah. And Matt Culpepper, he was the guitar player, and at that time they were just set up, man. It was crazy.
Cool.
Pretty cool guys.
So roughly about how old were you then?
26.
Okay, so drumming was a little bit later for you. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So the bug hit. So woodworking was first, then the drumming, and then now we're kind of starting to kind of marry it into two things here. So as you're was doing your vocational and apprenticing, the cabinet making, and starting to get into drums, there was a certain point where the story, from what I've read, is you came across an old house that was getting torn down, that you had always had. You have this interest, or this, I don't know if fascination is the right word, but in wood in general.
Yeah.
Not just but the raw, material, right?
Yeah. Well, not to mention too that that was going to be thrown away. Like this wood was going to be thrown away, and it's like the antique heart pine. This was a virgin heart pine that was here when our ancestors was here. This was the trees that was 300 years old. They've never been they've been harvested before, so they're old and seasoned and real tight. And when you touch them with a piece of a planer knife, they're like, it's that rich red amber color, and it smells up the whole room. So it's it's that kind of wood, and so it just kind of made me, I love the way it smelled. I would come home and I would always smell like that old wood, and so I grabbed that old wood, and I had an old Pacific drum kit.
Okay.
That I wasn't using. So I was like, I wonder, because it's very difficult. At that time, it was difficult to get drum hardware. You couldn't just go and order some stuff, the screws and everything. You had to really dig to find it. It was easier just to take a drum kit apart.
Right.
So, I went and took it apart and made the shells to fit, basically just swapped it over.
Okay.
Took it to a local church where I was at, and that was a drum set we played there for years, and that's actually still up there.
Wow.
But yeah, it was nothing to be. It was. Look, man, I'm telling you, you're talking about learning a lot of stuff. Trial and error, man.
Right.
Trial and error.
Yeah.
You get better at it as you go.
It's kind of like we were talking before about our podcast, right? It's
Yeah.
something you just kind of nobody teaches. Well, I guess nowadays there are all sorts of
Courses,
stuff, and all that about podcasting. But yeah, it's a great thing about being a creator, an inventor, and to feel like you have no boundaries and to be limited by what can be done.
Yeah.
It's all based on what your imagination is, right?
Yeah.
So that house was quite a few hundred years old, right?
Yeah. So if you had the house was built in the 1890s, it was the one of the first original house was. This wasn't the first one, but it was the Wilder. It's called the Wilder Project, and it was an old house that was given to a farmland for their service in the war, and so that's kind of how they gave him the house and a mule, and so was able to have that story right there, and that she just said, you can just have the whole house, whatever you wanted out of it, and it was old, so we just took it apart. We just took it apart and dissected it and started building drums out of it and just experimenting, trial and error, seeing what works. I did realize that heart pine is one of the very most hardest woods to make a drum out of. After starting, because I started with the hardest wood. It's like, wow. And then if everything, when you started working with other types of wood, it kind of got easier. But
right.
If you can build heart pine, anybody that knows that build anything out of heart pine, it's so dry and it's brittle and it breaks, it chips. It's just, you got to take a lot of care with it, but nothing else looks like it.
So you got to really take your time with it.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can kind of be a little bit more rough with,
Right.
and so forth. So there's really, your traditional drums are made out of birch, maple, mahogany,
Beech,
right, and poplar. Again, that's a little bit cheaper, but really nothing like this. Then, so was that something that nobody else has probably been out there that made this, and you kind of one of the first, or?
Yeah, I didn't see anybody making something out of heart pine.
And this is where the reason why you're saying there's a reason why nobody's making.
There's a reason why. There is a reason why. It is not easy to work with, and you can't just go and bend a piece of heart pine that's been sitting straight for 400 years. They ain't gonna like it. It's gonna break.
Right.
But there's other ways to make them.
Right.
That I found out.
So does most of the drums let's before we get to the drums, but the wood that you craft with, is it all essentially locally sourced?
A lot of it's not. A lot of times we'll have people that donate me all kinds of different woods from all over the place, all over the United States, from the redwood forest. I had some wood donated from from California, from the redwood forest, old like old church pews, that something, a lot of the times, it just depends on the different types of wood is basically ready, they send it to me all the time.
Okay.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Okay.
I know I'm rambling on a little bit.
Yeah.
on that.
No, I get you. So there's other, as you mentioned, was whether it's older houses or trees that may have fell or whatever the word is, fallen. They're doing some tree clearing. That, like you said, it might be hundreds of years old trees that has taken on so much of the environment into the wood that gives it such a different its own characteristics, right? To, as you mentioned, church pews. I read somewhere about bridge ties or things like that, which is kind of interesting. So, and then when somebody brings wood to you, obviously they have something specific in mind. Say, hey, make something out of this, right? Most
of the time, you can build a drum out of workable wood. Most of the time. So a lot of times, the chances are rare that you just can't build. Sometimes the wood is too rotted, or sometimes the wood's just not sonically, or the grain's going the wrong direction. But for the most part, there's some good pieces, and it don't take a whole lot of wood to build a drum. You can pick through and get the best pieces out. That I found. So you can most of the time you can build a drum out of a wood somebody sends you.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm just again, and probably get ready to kind of delve into a little bit of how to talk about a little bit how would you make something, because again, I know there's, you talk about the bending and it's not like you just cut a tree, hollow it out, and there's your drum kind of thing. There's a lot more to it. But so this then led you to in about 2011 or so is kind of when you said, this is when you're going to kind of go more into establishing this as now a business or kind of your brand, right? Yep. Of making drums and so forth. So back in 2011 then. So yeah, again, as just like I talk about the craft distillers that are out there that are up against the big boys, and then people have no idea there's a lot of great other stuff that's out there because of the marketing machine of bigger products. And I know we'll talk a little bit about, I know you've been to NAMM the last time they had it, other than coming up soon, I think, right? And to kind of get, how to get the word out there, right? We were talking a little bit about that before, is kind of getting that word out there, right? And things like this and, social media and networking, exactly. And yeah, I mean, over the since, 11, 12, what's that? Whatever, do the math, right? 11 years now at least, right? Yeah. You've been featured in drum magazines, Drummer World, there's been a video. Jared from Drumeo has done a video and talking about one of your drums. So it's kind of sometimes a slow go, right? It's
definitely a process,
right?
Because when you're doing it, it seems like it just takes forever, But you start looking back at different points, and you're seeing a lot of those works and a lot of those hard efforts start coming to life now. Right.
Yeah, it's crazy, as you said. Speaking of the process, and we're going to talk about the process here in a second here, but good segue almost. But yeah, so 2011, and then that's kind of where you're going through, and with that reclaimed wood back. And was that 2006 kind of time frame? About then? So you had at least a few years before you kind of took it into a little bit more of the brand, right? Yeah. So yeah, because I guess it was kind of interesting. You said that plantation house, just driving down the road, I guess, and you saw all that wood as you were talking about, right? Yeah. That's kind of neat. And I said, it's definitely for those of you trying to kind of the frame of reference from where, even in Florida, it's two totally different states, maybe three, I guess, but it's South Florida, it's its own thing. North Florida is a different part of this, a different part of the state. Here we're in southwestern Georgia, very much, we don't have the concrete jungle as they call it, down South Florida and so forth. But it's all these trees and all the shrubs and all the farms and so forth. So Yeah, a lot of cool, and definitely here where we're at, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Airbnb.
Yes.
So the definitely have to check that out. So we'll talk about that in a second here. So going through all that now, let's talk about, you've got this wood. I don't know, how do you make a drum? How do you make a drum out of a church pew, right?
Well, first of all, you got to look at the wood, look at the thickness, got to get it sized right, seeing about how much wood it's possibly going to take. And then, like, what you do is you got to get it sized properly. That's going to be the biggest thing, is making sure all your pieces are exactly the same size, thickness, and in width. And because if that's not right, it's going to mess you up. And basically, you just get on a table saw and you cut slight angles on it, much like they used, they make a barrel. They call it staves. The individual pieces that go down, and cut on slight angles, and then they're milled on the outside, and then on the inside perfectly round. Okay. Basically making a cylinder. But what'll happen is a lot of times you got to check to make sure that the wood is properly dry and properly it's been, and it's sound, because if your wood's dry, a lot of times it's gonna it'll do bad things if you send it somewhere that's real wet, or vice versa.
Okay.
So it's and that's basically how we do it. Each one is kind of made individual. Let me show you. I got one right here.
Sure. So if you're watching the video here on YouTube, you see in the background behind us there all the different snares, and obviously the drum kit, and then actually one of the drums here that Michael's going to show us here.
So this is basically a pine drum here with oak edges on it, and it's when this thing is cut, it's definitely cut on a bunch of different pieces.
Okay, so the middle part is actually like slats. Can I call it slats?
Yep.
And then they are fitted or glued or into the, I guess, sandwiched in between the two pieces.
Yep.
Then.
Yeah, basically it's two different drums here. That I make, and then I cut them down and put them together. Okay. And then and mill them into one section. It's kind of how you would do something like that. Like with the pine that I'm doing, it's like you'll have a layer of this is the trick with pine, is getting it real stable. Okay. And having the grain going one way and then having the grain going the other way. Okay. Then you could have a wood that's basically as stable. That's the only down thing about pine. Sometimes it can not be as stable as other types of wood, but when they're staggered joints like that, it eliminates that problem.
Wow.
But so I mill it. Now what I would do right here, I would take it and mark it for hardware, drill it, cut the edges on it, sand it, and then spray it and put hardware on it and play some paradiddles.
So how long does it normally take to make a...
Well, the process takes about 2 weeks, depending, because there's a lot of dry time in there too.
Yeah. Okay.
So just depending on if you had, depending on the finish, so we'll do some aqua dip finishes where we're just basically dip the drum into straight paint. Okay. And it takes a little longer to dry. So, but just each one's a little bit different. But normally somewhere around, around that period,
So definitely it's a little warm today, and even here for Georgia, right? Normally
it's really hot for right now. It's humid, real bad humid. It's there's supposed to be some storms coming in tomorrow.
Yes. I was like, man, I almost feel like I didn't actually leave South Florida. Just it's
actually was hot. It's like gonna be I think the end of it's like 100.
Yeah. So, yeah, I should be used to it, but again, it's usually when you're going somewhere else where you're not thinking it's gonna normally. So, so that was again talking about the humidity there, right? How do you typically dry them out and make sure they're all dry?
I got a room that I stick the wood in, and I just monitor it real close. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll over dry it here, so that to kind of meet where it's going to be going. Like if I'm shipping a drum to like Arizona, where it's real dry, a lot of the times I will make sure that the wood is going to be more suitable for that climate. Okay.
So because it's super no humidity in Arizona.
That was a big issue at first. I didn't really know. There wasn't no YouTube or anything you can really just find out. That's something like you got to just try.
Right. You should talk with or hit up or introduce you to our last guest we just had on. Which here, look at this. Well, again, when you're listening to this podcast, this episode will already be out. So episode 98 is with Paul Lee, or Paul. Paul. His name's Paul, like mine, and his name of his company is Paul Lee Drums, and he makes all out of wood, djembes. I'm drawing a blank on this congas, and the heads are all wood. So even the djembes are all wood heads. And he talked about an instance when he had made it. I'm trying to go on memory now. I think it was a djembe, and he had a goat skin head on it, and he was in Arizona, and it just dried up and cracked. And then I think from that forward, he's like, "No, we're not doing any more. It's all going to be wood." So yes, he's got a little experience in Arizona, but he's now living in the UK. So I don't know. I mean, we could always, connect you guys to some of those things. But again, it's always interesting, right? And again, you don't know, and there's a lot of things that YouTube only has videos of what people have done.
That's right.
And actually record it. That's the main thing, right?
That's it.
There's a lot of stuff that's probably just done, but it's never been recorded, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's 2 weeks. That's really the patience you must have, and to kind of do some of that.
It
right?
may be faster.
Yeah,
it really just depends on what I'm doing and how intricate. Like, this is a pretty in-depth shell right here. It's got a lot of different pieces to it.
And you got any concerns with the knots in the wood? No. Okay.
No, because right below it, this, like I said, this is laminates.
Okay.
Right below it, it's only that thick. That knot is.
Yeah, that's something that are
and sonically, it probably will affect this overall tone pitch of the shell, but to me, you're not going to be able to hear that with the naked ear.
Right.
And if you're listening for that and you can hear a knot difference,
yeah, good for you. Right?
You are the man. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, once you slap some heads on it and probably the snare.
Most of it is. Most of it is heads. A lot of the time, people want to really get kind of carried away a lot of times about the different types of wood and everything.
Don't tell anybody that unless you're selling drum heads, right?
I mean, it does help. Like so wood does affect the sound of drums for sure. But you can make your drum sound crazy sound.
There's those videos where people take those little cheap kits and they turn them into like amazing
studio mastered.
Yeah, because they've just got the right tuning and dampening and so forth.
The edges is so important. The edges, how edges are done. That everything plays a toll. Right. But a big toll is the setup and the type of drum heads that go on.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what type of because I guess the finishes too, right? That also has any of the lacquer and the finishes on it. That's also going to add a little bit of
mass to the shell.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So to go through that and so forth. So some of the ones that we're looking at behind us here, I know the folks watching can see different ones here. So. The snakeskin one, is that what is that? Is that a wrap?
That's old Douglas fir. That was airbrushed on there.
Oh, okay.
By
Wow.
a local artist.
Wow, that snakeskin was airbrushed.
Yeah, Shannon, my buddy Shannon, he's an amazing airbrushed artist. And he airbrushed that as a gift to me when our house burnt down.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, he did that, and the one beside it is a Southern Yellow Pine, and hello. We're doing an come on in. Come on.
We got a mystery guest.
Hey.
How are they doing?
We're doing our episode, Mama. Come on in. Close the door.
Hello. Thank you for the treats. Oh.
Take all the dogs, please. Take all of them. Sorry.
It's all right. Those who get to watch the episode, we'll figure out how what we'll do with whether we'll keep that in or not. But that airbrushing is kind of crazy. And you said the one right in the middle, I think you were just mentioning there.
Yep. Yeah. That's pine right there, Southern Yellow Pine.
Okay.
The other one there is another yellow pine. That other one, see that burnt amber? That's heart pine.
Okay.
That is the same kind of wood that's on these walls right here.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yep.
Very cool.
Mahogany. We can build drums out of any kind of usable wood.
Right. Wow.
And I'm really geared to using wood that's old and seasoned. Because here's the thing about wood too, man. It's like the wood as it ages and has years and years. You're talking about of just resonating and vibrating in a house, or it's going to sound different.
Right.
Just like you ever heard of? I know people say how an old guitar just has a one of a kind sound.
Right, the body. Right,
Why?
they were talking about
because it's just years and years of resonating. Those fibers have gotten loose, and that drum just wants to sing. It's going to sing more and more.
Right.
It loosens. It's stiff at first.
Right.
It takes a while to loosen it up, and the pores just kind of relax, and yeah. Maybe that is too cheesy. Did I go too far?
No, that's all right. It's all right. I think that's.
But I believe that. That's the truth.
Well, the truth. Look, there is an earthy. Yeah, not to go down where you want to go, right? But there is a natural. These are all these things, right? That is, God made. It's earth and living, breathing. That's all part of things that have different. It's not that trees are alive, but. Well, they are.
It all plays a part.
I don't want anybody, give me a hard time them saying that trees aren't alive or have feelings. But but there is a, I think if you're definitely get into really, I think we need to start backing out of this.
Everything. Everything is vibrations. Anything is vibrations,
for sure.
And it always everything kind of moves.
Yeah, sound travels. Sounds different, right? As it hits something different than it's
really simple,
Yeah. No, for sure. So there's still you mentioned the one of the methods, but you do two kinds of methods, right?
Yep. Segmented and stave. So segmented is basically when the grain goes horizontal, not vertical.
Okay. So
you're going horizontal this way. That's what I call segmented drums. And what I've always called it. This right here, when the grain goes up and down, a lot of times that's going to be called stave.
Okay.
So when I think of a stave drum, that means that grain is vertical.
Okay.
This one right here is actually kind of a hybrid because it goes both ways. But it's glued on top of one another. Now it's stable.
Okay.
And that a lot of times you wouldn't ever want to put a stave and then a segmented drum on top of each other just because they're going to take the moisture different and they're going to move differently.
So when a drum company talks about different plies, they're talking about taking sheets of milled or certain thickness of wood and just applying, forming it round, and then applying glue or whatever that process is.
Yeah, that's kind of like that's a ply. Basically, it's a ply. And it's basically you just putting glue on top of thin pieces of veneer, putting it into a mold, and bringing it and having that mold expand, and it pushes it to the side of the wall. And now when the glue dries, you have a drum shell, and that's kind of how that's done.
Okay. So,
and then it's trued up, and it's like a cylinder.
I can't imagine definitely from a manual process and how that's got to be almost difficult, I would imagine. It's probably doable, but to make sure it's the form and the making of the plies, gluing it, make sure they're perfectly,
and it's those angles. It's got to be. Not angles, but it's the lengths. It's got to be just right too.
Right.
If the lengths are not just right, you'll have gaps underneath the veneer where it's hollow.
Okay.
And those a lot of the times. Those are the drums that are kind of get kicked to the side on a kick to the side. These dogs are distracting me on a drum manufacturer on a line.
Okay,
These are the cheaper line drums.
Right.
Maybe they have
mass produced.
That needs to be puttied a little bit more. But
okay.
I still sell it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing with that.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
Come on. Sorry.
And I guess some of the larger manufacturers that make drums are mostly would you say that that's kind of how they do it?
Yeah, a lot of that's a lot of them how they do it. A lot of them are buying their shells.
Okay.
A lot of them are buying their shells and just putting drum hardware on them around the edges and painting.
Okay.
But there is a really big increase too on new drum companies coming up too. A lot of people are building want to start drum companies.
Okay.
Because you can build a drum. Like I said, you can literally go to Home Depot and get enough tools and and build yourself a drum if you want to.
Right.
You can. It's not crazy hard, you know. I mean, building the drum is actually the easy part, you know, of a drum company.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You just still got to know what you're doing, but yeah, probably the toughest part is knowing how to use the tools.
Yeah.
Right. Is making sure you're
knowing how to use the tools.
Right.
Yeah.
And definitely not me, because you know, I know the Home Depot commercials is the measure twice, cut once. You know, I'm measure twice, cut twice. So
you never work with wood too much.
Not really, except for the home improvement kind of stuff where no real wood shop, wood making or anything like that.
Yeah.
Except for putting up a fence and whatever else we got to do around the house. Nothing for creative or kind of artistic kind of way. More of a necessity. Home improvement. So, but yeah, I can definitely see how. Yeah, again. Like I said, other guests have talked about that, when they were making, I think Nicky Moon had talked about him making cymbals, and then, compared to maybe some of the larger companies where they're producing and, they're huge and they got to crank stuff out, right? And of course, it may not have the same effort or time or to produce, to put into a little bit more than something that just could be mass produced and just sent right out the door, right? So yeah, no, that's kind of interesting. So and you mentioned you got a couple different artists that are playing your drums there. So who's currently? You mentioned the Outlaw.
Outlaw Nation, yeah. Right, David, I just was talking to him just a while ago. They made that song, "Welcome to My House." They're the drummer for that. That was just a major hit song. But yeah. He's one of our artists and plays a full Outlaw kit, and they tour. They do a lot of mud bogs and stuff.
Okay.
If there's a big mud bog around, they're going to be playing on one of their shows.
Okay.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. And then you have another artist who I was just looking up her information.
Emily Gould.
Yes.
Yeah, Emily Gould's been playing our stuff for a long time. She is definitely a sweetheart. She's amazing drummer. Can just play about any kind of genre of music, and just solid and fully dedicated to her craft, and she knows her lane. All
right. So the kits or the different drums and snares. I mean, where again, I know there's different nuances in wood and how it's maybe more difficult to make, but I mean, roughly. I guess what would you say that if somebody, or I guess me, I'm asking the question, what separates you from, how one of the other larger companies are making their drums? I mean, why should somebody buy Outlaw Drums as opposed to X company? I get kind of lost in one particular drum, one drum that I'm working on currently. So it's hard, and one customer at a time. A lot of the customers, that's why I don't really have to advertise too much anymore, because my customers, they keep me busy so much. Right.
I have plenty of drums to make, and I'm doing exactly what I want to do. And, right now we're really not going into the whole production aspect of doing drums. I'm not doing 100 for Guitar Center right now or nothing. We're just slow rolling it, kind of doing one kit, one unique snare. Like right now, I'm dissecting a piano in the shop and building a snare drum out of it.
Oh,
out
wow.
of an old piano, and using that wood that's been resonated, like we were talking about, and putting it into a snare for a guy, Tom, and making a couple drum kits. And I think when you have a drum made from Outlaw Drums, it's going to be unique and special. It's not going to be something that you can. It's
got a little soul in it, right?
It's got a little soul in it. You're just not going to go buy one. You're going to have to wait on it at first, to get it. So it's going to be the anticipation of it,
Right.
And it's going to be handcrafted.
Right, yeah.
It's going to be handcrafted, and a lot of it's done on the vibe that I'm feeling currently, How's that look, Because
right.
especially like when we're doing the aqua dip drums, when we literally dip the drum in water, and with paint, basically it's as simple as it is. Basically it's as simple as it is. When you dip that into water like that and pull it out, there's an art to it, and it all looks good. It's just kind of perspective how you're feeling,
right?
And making it please to you.
Does any of you do you provide, or does any of your customers ask for video of the process of them having their drum made?
Yeah, most of them I'm doing video some
Okay.
shape or form for
Okay.
their drums. You know.
Yeah, speaking of the videos there, yeah, your YouTube channel, you've got some really awesome videos. We were talking a little bit of that before, as as we were trying to trade little few little tips and things, and which is perfect. It's what podcasters try to do is help
Yeah.
each other out, right? Especially drummers too, and I'm just watching some of them. Like again, it's like making drums. It's as we were talking about. It can be time consuming,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of the creativity process and the flow and how to structure a video, right?
Yeah.
How to get the right camera shots and so forth too. So yeah, so it's
Yeah.
definitely
I get it. I love, and it's the whole same thing of creating. You're creating something, and you're gonna have an end product. You're just creating on video form now instead of a physical product, and I can get the same kind of gratification from either one. Having a well polished video that I'm very proud of, or a well polished drum that I'm very proud of.
Right.
I like both of them.
Right.
I do love drums, but sometimes you just want to change things up.
Yeah.
You kind of, go through different chapters of your life.
Yeah,
And depending
yeah.
on where you are, it just, makes things kind of unique.
Yeah.
Who wants to do the same thing over and over every day?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes I find that if I've, and I know I'm probably, in confession right now here saying that, if I'm away from the drums for a while, it is actually kind of refreshing because it kind of clears some preconceived things, and it's like, okay, you get a little bit more openness and creativeness. Say, it's anyway. So, but to your
You can almost
point,
get better. It seems like sometimes.
yeah,
You feel like
you got to walk away, and then you got to
come back, and you're
yeah.
like, you know what? I feel like I can play.
Yeah.
I went from a drum break. I don't know. A few months ago, I was just like, I'm taking a break for a while.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go down another path for a minute, and when I come back to it, I want to see how I feel.
Right. Yeah. So, speaking of drums, though, Todd Zuckerman's your guy, huh?
Yeah, I love Todd Zuckerman.
So you saw he was on Drumeo yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, if we're listening,
Todd
we're taping this
Zuckerman
on
is my favorite drummer.
we're taping this on May 20th. So I know we're referencing actually May 19th. So you have to go watch the Drumeo on for May 18th.
Yeah.
Geez, that's a lot of things to think about. Yeah. So
He is a drummer with so much class and just skill, and just I don't know. He's always made me feel amazing. Every time I talked to him, I felt so encouraged and lifted up. And he's just like doing it. Have you heard him sing?
no,
Todd can sing, man.
really.
Yeah, I heard one of his tracks that he was doing on Instagram a few weeks back, and I'm so inspired by this guy because not only he can play the drums like that, he's so rounded in music, man.
Right. Yeah.
I love him to death.
It's always define people, and that's something that you had asked me earlier was how I started this all and how I got into it and why and what was my deal and so forth. And again, as I said to you earlier, was what probably people that had listened to the podcast often enough got sick of is my Nashville story. And but I'm not going to rehash the whole thing, but it was definitely something that kind of struck me as being kind of always come up as a rock guy and seeing more was like the theatrics and the more of the band aspect, but really understanding how important it is. You need to be a musician first. So, and maybe that's not as bad as it used to be back in the 80s and, where it was all MTV and you want to be a rock star and all that glam to go with it, but it was important to be a musician because if you really want to be a drummer long term, for sure, bands come and go. It's not very often you have the longevity of some of those bands, but be very good at that craft because you can definitely have a career long term.
Yeah.
Whether it's I'm going to go see Ringo next month
Nice.
down South Florida with his all-star band, and backing him is Greg Bissonette, the famed 80s 90s drummer and total great but drummer for David Lee Roth, but he's kept busy, right, doing different things, and whether it's studio work or now backing Ringo Starr,
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, so so Todd, that's so definitely. I know. I just happened to be funny. We were looking at the thing last night and going over some of the show notes for prep for today, and was thinking, I was like, I wonder if he knows that he was on Drumeo. He was actually, I think it was a live stream last night. So it's kind of
I made him a blue heart pine blueberry stave drum a long time ago. Yeah, and he did a magazine at that time, and it was listed as one of his top favorite snares.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So definitely had to get the rest, like you mentioned, right? Been in drum. Listen, right off a couple things here, right? Is so featured in, as I mentioned, Drumeo. You've been featured in Drummer World. Also featured in a local NBC news station came on out here and did a story about you. So let me come back here, as you mentioned, and I would say this is your most recent episode, and let me see how I can segue this into first. So your most recent, it's not just your recent podcast episode, but it's also something that you've been doing as well, is this song contest. Mm-hmm. So I mean, how'd you come up with this idea, and kind of?
So a lot of musicians, they'll send me their songs to listen to, CDs, all kinds of stuff. Just check it out, 'cause I love music, and I'm like I'm a '90s rock guy. That's kind of my deal. But at the same time, I love all kinds of music, And some of my buddies kind of give me a little heat for like the country rap rock stuff. I like it. A lot of people don't.
I was gonna say, not to offend. I'm like, it definitely where you live don't seem like it's a '90s rock kind of town, right? No offense, but yeah.
So if people send, so I was like, you know what?
But Kid Rock, okay. If you're talking about Kid Rock, now Kid Rock's
Kid Rock,
right? He's the crossover, right, of '90s rock,
he
rap,
made it
whatever.
Successfully.
That's right, yeah.
He did it,
and that's why you got Cotton Eye Joe now.
I heard one of his concerts is like, you go to one of his concerts, you don't never forget it.
So you're probably gonna hate me when I tell you this, right? So this was maybe 2018, something like that, right? And somebody had gotten an extra ticket to go see up at the Jacksonville Stadium. It was where Lynyrd Skynyrd had played, right? So it was Skynyrd, Kid Rock performed, Charlie Daniels performed, Blackberry Smoke was there,
man.
So it was a good crossover. I can't remember who else was on there, again. But yeah, he definitely he's a performer, he's a character, he's an entertainer, and and I know he's got his views on certain things, and he actually lives not that far from down south, where I live down south. And he is definitely the American badass. He's apparently had a big old American flag painted on his garage door in the town. The small little town he lived in was fining him every day because it didn't pass code. And he basically, I guess the fine was like $5 a day, something stupid, right? And he wrote him a check and said, "I'm going to leave it up for the rest of the year," right? So I don't. That's a story that I heard. I don't know if it's true. So. Kid Rock, if you want to come on and set the story straight, come on.
Straight.
Yeah, and so 90s rock and all that. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, 90s rock is my jam. Refreshments, all that kind of stuff. And so I started the music contest and wanted to basically hear everybody's stuff.
Right.
Generally, because I found out a lot of people are just scared to death to post their music. They'll spend all this time, studio time,
right,
making the song, but never let nobody else hear it. And it's just why. And so I thought, let's do a contest. I'm gonna offer this drum. We had Amy Lane. She came over and did the button caps for it. It was a maple shell valued about $2,000, and so we decided to give it away. So we randomly gave it. We didn't randomly give it. So what we did, we had a group of judges.
Okay,
that's how we did it. We had a group of judges that had different ears. Like for instance, young, all the way to production, as far as being able to have more of a studio tuned ear that's going to hear a lot of, but at the same time having a newness to your ear that would be able to just hear something that sounds amazing right from the get go. And played the whole list of songs. We went through them, picked out 5. All right, and then through the 5, we randomly selected the winner.
Okay.
Because music is so subjective, and what sounds good to somebody may not sound good. And so, Empowered, they won, and he actually came down last week and picked up the drum. We hung out like for 2 days. He stayed in the Airbnb. We did filming, we videoed, and had a good time hanging. I got to know him real good. They're a Christian rock band.
Okay.
They do a lot of shows in churches, but they rock and really bring
right.
it, And so yeah, Benny was super cool and got to hang out with him. And so doing this contest, man, it's just a great opportunity to be able to just hear different. And we're going to do it, I think, once a year.
Yeah.
Once
Okay.
a year. That was a 2022 original music contest. So we'll do a 23. You know,
Yeah.
and see what happens.
And
this
now,
time.
so there's people from all over the country. That's
we had 40 people
okay.
submitted, which may not be a big deal, but for somebody to have the courage up to
Yeah.
say, hey, because there's a vulnerability
All right.
can seep in, you know, when you submit your song.
So what type of criteria did he have where it wasn't like, full blown professional musicians or somebody? You know, had to be unsigned?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Unsigned, and basically your song, you know, it's just like a song that you were working on in the studio. You had to be a artist. You had to have artwork and a band name. We didn't have a whole lot of criteria. You didn't even have to have lyrics to it.
Right. Okay.
You know? But definitely didn't have to have a label or nothing like that, you know.
Okay. So I guess out of all that, well, again, ultimately it's the drummer who's benefits from this
Yeah.
contest.
Yeah.
The most.
Yeah. But they're gonna put it in Nashville, one of their studios, and they're gonna
Cool.
be playing on some albums
Oh, yeah.
and stuff. So it was definitely really cool. I had a blast doing it, man. It was nerve-wracking trying to judge that music because you listen to.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. 'cause
Yeah,
that
you're gonna
was-
make
that-
some right. That's the part about judging and reviews and,
Yeah.
and ratings and
'cause
things.
What type
'cause-
of music? You know, what type of music? You know, and I think this next year we're gonna have it more open to where people can comment.
Okay.
More of a comment type, you know,
Right.
a live comment type, you know.
Yeah, I think that's good because I think some of the contests that are out there that allow for fan voting is I hate to say this, you know, because it's definitely going to be a little controversial for me to say it this way, but a little bit of a popularity contest, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like I said, I know I may piss some people off with
Yeah.
saying that, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I get it, but I think at the same time but it goes back to then I've heard even the complaint about Battle of the Bands too,
Yeah.
where it's really whoever knows the people or whoever's in the local scene to know or whatever, whereas some band might be actually better than others. But again, it's all subjective, but sometimes those Battle of the Bands are quote unquote rigged, as
Yeah.
I've heard some people tell me that's either how it is or that's how they feel, right? Obviously, usually if you win, you're never saying any of those things,
Yeah.
right?
That's
So
a
if
fact.
you're the winner, so but no, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and what we
Yeah.
did, man, we made it where people can donate, they can contribute. Patrick Morris, you're amazing. Thank you so much. But people can they can, you know, help with the cause of this. I think
Right.
next year what I want to do is I want to do an endorsement contest.
Yeah, you definitely
Win an
yeah,
Outlaw Drum endorsement deal.
because I think you'd have a lot of people that are really there's a lot more skin in the game on that then
Mhm.
for sure. You
Yeah.
know. Cool.
Yeah. I think that's maybe something we kind of talk. I'm always about
Yeah.
trying something new and trying something
Yeah,
different. Just
yeah.
seeing what sticks, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think some of this stuff, right, is whether collaborations, meeting new people
Mhm.
and kind of bouncing things off. They're a little bit different, maybe it's kind of a little bit out of your swim lane. But how do you do a little crossover? And sometimes your viewers, fans, or followers, or whatever you call them, may not get it, but that's a part of, again, you, as you said, right? You kind of be a little outlaw on some of these things. You're not going to want to follow what everyone else does, right?
Yeah.
Right, because that road's already been passed.
Yeah.
Right.
Do your own path.
Yeah.
Do
yeah,
your
for
own
sure.
path and what makes you happy.
Yeah. So
That's kind of what I'm on.
yeah. It's it's your thing. It's your art. It's and it's just like music, right? It's follow everybody. You could I guess, but is that you really doing it for yourself or really for
Well, I have
follow?
to kind of rope myself back in too. Sometimes I get going and just get too far out there, and I gotta have my wife. She kind of reels me in a lot. She's literally the anchor. She kind of like, all right, going out there now. Come on back this way, Sam. What are you talking about? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I had talking about a little bit out there, and again, is I had somebody approach me with an idea that it probably would do good. It is more on the rum related kind of things, but I think in my current outside of the podcast world, obviously I keep that very separate from this because doesn't pertain to any of this. But I think there's this idea would be kind of a little kind of on the edge there where I would have to be very careful. I won't share. I'll tell you after we're done what it is, but I won't get into it. So. Because I don't want anybody to steal an idea if I actually do lose my job and I will have to really do something. I have to go full-time content creator, which then my wife will be like, you need to get a real job. This podcasting thing ain't real. But yeah, thank God sometimes for wives, right? They reel us back in because we definitely can get a little crazy. So, but yeah, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, like I said, you got to kind of do different things. And then, are you going out to NAMM?
I'm not, but okay. I do have a couple drums that's going to be at the Welch Tuning System booth. Okay. We'll have 2 Outlaw snares at their booth.
Yeah, let's talk about that because I saw it and I was explain to me, and then I guess to the listeners is what exactly is that?
Okay, so basically it's kind of like an old time world drum, kind of built on a new scale with amazing technology and engineering. Pulleys are made super strong. So basically it's a drum shell. And then it has pulleys going down the side of it. And all of it's connected by one knob. I wish I had one here. I'm completely sold out. You turn and it tensions the top and the bottom of the drum down at the same time. And you can change the sound of your drum dramatically so fast. Oh, wow. It's like, boom, you go from fat, floppy, blah, to all of a sudden you're boing,
So you don't have to worry about one lug being a little looser or whatever. It's all...
No. It's sometimes, only thing is like sometimes drummers kind of go a little too far with it. Because that's the only down part, is you can't... But when you hit that drum in the center, man, that thing sounds good.
Right. Yeah. Right. So is that something that they reached out to you about, the idea, or was it already something that they were doing on another drum, or?
Yeah, a few years ago, we got together and did a collaboration, and tried just tried it out. Tried it out on one of our drums. They had their own line. And we looked at and we liked the hardware. The hardware is really top notch quality. So why not try on our shells use their technology? And yeah, that's been a very popular drum for us. I've got a couple orders right now that I'm working on. Okay. And did some kits like that too. It's a really fun deal.
Yeah, you got to definitely we'll have put the links in definitely because it was very fascinating when I looked at it. It was it's definitely engineering.
The Welch tuning system is definitely there. It's fun. It's a fun drum to play, because immediately you can make your drum. And we like different stuff too. So it's like you can immediately come have a different sound on the fly fast.
Right.
Almost to fit the song that you're playing.
Right, like maybe more of a wet kind of
more
fat,
of a wet sound. Right, yeah. You want it drier or however you want it to sound, you can do it quick, fast.
Right, yeah, because it's definitely isn't. Other than opening up the snare, right? It's going to take some time to change it out and so forth. So now that's really cool. I saw that. I was like, okay, and then of course I think I read some forum about it, and I was, again I started going down the rabbit hole as I was doing our pre-show research or stalking, one or the other. I don't know what it was called. So yeah. And then also, as we mentioned there, as we talked about a little bit, we bounced around the term, the process. Mm-hmm. So as we mentioned there a little bit, so you have a podcast as well too, right? Yep. And yeah, talk about that.
So I just like talking, man. I like talking. I like meeting new people. I'm not gonna lie. And we just started this thing kind of just almost as a joke, It's like I'm gonna just start a podcast. I saw the app. I downloaded it. It's like let me just start who I got available to talk to right now. Here you go, boom, and then just started. I just started with my drum customers. Those are the people that knew the drum the most, and started doing that and interviewing. And then, like I said, started interviewing an artist, and it just like the realm of people that I could connect with was really kind of good. It's like, whoa. So I just started reaching out to other drum builders, like Rami from A&F Drums, got him on the show. And so it just kind of went, and it's been really fun to do, and just basically trying to figure out what makes drummers tick, what does drummers like? What do they like? People are different, and and I come to the conclusion that drummers are different.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think you're ever going to be able to know exactly what a drummer thinks.
Right. Just because somebody plays the same instrument as you do, they may have a whole totally different journey, a whole different story. And as I was explaining earlier, was what my podcast is all about is, it has evolved over the past 2 years, a little bit here and there, but still, look, as long as somebody is either, as I call them, a drummer or a rummer, right? And that's the hook. And, and sometimes the hook can be a little really loose. But, it's always fun to kind of talk to people because I think, especially for those that are the guests that come on that actually have a product or a company, to tell their story, right? And to make that personal connection with the listeners and the viewers, say, I like this guy, Michael. He's, I really like what he's about. He seems very personable, and I want to learn more about him, or I want to check out his products, or, maybe it's a rum company, and there's a personal side of them, right? Especially then when you're trying to compete, as I said, when you're a smaller company against the big boys in either of those two things, you got to have something different to connect with people that may not even know about you, because the mass marketing of all of that to cut through. And I don't know. So that's kind of how I look at and approach it, and that's that kind of sentiment though. But yeah, I was listening to a couple. I said I had definitely enough time to listen to some of the episodes there on my 6-hour drive, right? So I got a chance to catch up on some of them there. The one that you had gentleman on recently was discussion about the Alzheimer's and things like that.
He was staying at the Airbnb. He just happened to stay. Okay. And I was just like, he could play the guitar.
Oh,
it had a catchy song, man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just like, he played a song. I hummed for like days after he played it.
So, all right. So here's you're going to hear. So you heard it here first. So you've seen or heard of Daryl's house, right? Mm-hmm. So this is what it should be, right?
Yeah.
Dude, right?
Yeah.
You got people that come in at the Airbnb and come in and...
Yeah. Just a place where people can come and relax and chill.
Yeah.
And try out some drums.
Yeah.
Maybe buy one.
Yeah. I'm in having like that. Definitely, it said as we came up, Michael had offered, since I was, coming up and obviously not driving back tonight, right, is to stay at, at the Airbnb, right? So you have the cottage, and then the cabin.
The cottage and the hideaway.
Yeah, hideaway. Yeah. So
Outlaw hideaway.
Yeah. So I'm in the Outlaw hideaway there. So I'm solo there. So it's perfect, right? It's enough that I need. Again,
I mean, it's a small room. It ain't for like a huge family, but for two people or one person that wants to kind of get away, it might be something kind of cool.
Yeah. So, and now in the cottage, as you said, right, there's a full drum set in there.
There's a drum set on top of the gentleman's cabinet that I repurposed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's a good thing there's drums here, because I'm sure the people that are staying in that one probably would not be happy if I kind of walked in and say, yeah. But anyways.
This has been so much fun though, because people are coming down to stay. A lot of them, sometimes that we'll run across the drummer, and they'll just be completely blown away.
Yeah, they were just probably looking for a place to stay for the night, right? Coming through the travels, probably down in Florida or whatever, right? And just happened to Airbnb.
Yeah.
It's a great app, right? How it's become a huge game changer, right? And
because that was my old my dad's old photography studio, and then it used to be a room where I used to put the drums together at.
Okay.
And we just converted it into, like I said, I was gonna make it into a room where drummers can come. All the time, got bands coming down. They're traveling, just having a place where to make them stay, but just kind of messing around, put it on Airbnb, and it was just like every night it was getting booked. I was just like, whoa, this is kind of cool,
All right, yeah.
Especially way out in the sticks and where we are.
Yeah, you're definitely it's definitely great, as we were talking, right? Drummers Retreat is you're away from everything.
You're away from everything.
It's quiet. It's so it's definitely a place to kind of get a little sneak away there and just kind of chill and away from all of it. So yeah, no, very, very cool. So so I think as we're starting to wrap some things up here, we talked about, so definitely check out the podcast. So is it called The Process or The Outlaw Process?
The Outlaw Process.
Okay, so yeah, definitely. So it's available on Apple and then all the other
Spotify,
everywhere else there too. So okay. So all right, so Michael, are Are you ready for the rapid fire segment?
Yes.
Do you need another shot? Do you need another sip?
Sure. No, okay, I'm good.
Oh, all right, okay.
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. So, all right. So here we go. In 4 beats or less. All right. So again, if you listen to the podcast, you probably know what the first one up for the drummers are. But here we go. So number 1, in 4 beats or less, who's on your Mt Rushmore of drummers?
Like Todd Zuckerman, definitely. I like oh my gosh, my brain just totally.
What type of tempo is this 4 beats?
What you talking about? What am I supposed to do again? I'm confused.
No, it's all right. No, yeah. So just tell me. Yeah, we don't abide by the BPM.
Let's see. So I need you tell me my favorite drummers.
No, well, yeah, whoever you want. Now again, if Todd is like it, and that's the only person you're going to put on your Mount Rushmore, that's okay.
It changes. It definitely changes because it's depending on the type of music that that I'm digging into right now. Yeah, I mean I have to say I definitely like Todd Zuckerman. That's my boy. Just stick with him for right now.
Okay, all right. Like I said, it's your Mount Rushmore because I have had that person. Somebody had asked me. He's
like next week or something. I'm probably gonna have another one.
Okay, all right. So we have a follow up there. We'll have a follow up to the. By the time this podcast posts, next week, not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday, we'll say, we have an edit. We'll have an edit session here. So all right. So all right. So number 2. So in 4 beats or less. What's your most important tool in the workshop?
My most important tool in the workshop would possibly, it would be my shaper, my 3 horsepower or 5 horsepower grizzly tilting spindle shaper. It's a big chunk of meat about that tall, has a bit on it about that big, and it's just
Is this something like I would see on a BattleBot?
It looks like it. It'll definitely it'll chunk like. If you're not holding that drum shell right,
it'd shoot it out, right?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's like you're driving a big school bus.
Okay.
When you're milling, yeah.
Okay.
That's probably the backbone right there.
Okay.
But, a router. Routers are definitely super important. Routers.
So we're definitely gonna save some of the tour. We're gonna get a tour of the workshop here in a bit. So that'll be separate for separate footage there. So, all right. So so number 3. So in 4 beats or less, Stuck on an Island. What's the one song?
What's the one song that I would like to play? If I was stuck on an island?
Yeah, if that's all you had to listen to, man. If you're like...
I would say that... hang on. I got it right here.
Are you phoning a friend?
No. Oh, my gosh. Man, what? That's a tough one, man.
I know. That's why I asked him. This is the rapid fire.
How about...
You got to convince me now. It's not mine. It's mine. It's yours.
Life is a Fantasy by Vanilla Ice.
Okay. That's okay. All right. It's your song. You're on the island with Wilson and Tom Hanks, okay? In that song. All right. That's on. No, we're not going to shame. No shame.
Just playing, man. I'm just joking.
Okay.
That song definitely come up on my my playlist.
Okay. I like how you jump back in there before when the podcast goes out.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm liking some Post Malone right now. I'm liking some Post Malone.
Okay.
Red Hot Chili Peppers. House of Pain is on my playlist.
Oh, okay.
Put Your Head Out. That's a good one.
Okay.
House of Pain. But you ever heard that one?
I don't know if I've heard. It's been a while.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you didn't say Jump Around.
Mm-mm.
Right. Okay.
Audio Slave. I love that.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I said, Kid Rock, love it. Chris Stapleton, yes. 3 Doors Down.
Wow,
yes.
this
Nickelback.
is tough. Right. Yeah.
I like Colt Ford too.
All right. So what we know about Michael is he never wants to be left on an island alone because he wouldn't know what the one song.
My
right now
so
you're
random. It is.
And right now you're currently farthest from any island actually right now, so you don't have to be worried about stuck on an island. So. All right. So in 4 beats or less, the last one here. Now this is going to be maybe a little tough. What do you like more, drumming or making drums?
It really depends on how. It really depends. Like I would say, right now, currently, I'm probably into playing drums right now. But last week I was into building them.
Okay.
It changed.
Okay. All right.
It's really that close. Sometimes it's like, and then it's like I just can't wait to start playing.
So, if I force you to make a decision,
I'd say building drums.
okay,
Building drums is the thing.
There you go.
I'm a builder.
All right, so there
that's
you
my
go.
heritage. That's my background. That's who I am.
And that's why I asked you to come on the podcast. So
Yes.
good answer. All right. So now that you've been put for the pain and agony of the rapid fire segment there.
Rapid fire.
So welcome to the alum now here. You are now a Drums and Rums alum.
Oh,
So there you go.
yes.
There you go.
Cool.
So you've
Love it.
joined the esteemed alums again as somebody.
Yes.
Had Don Farmler on. And I said the Drums and Rums alums, and then he just kind of kept rolling with the rhyming of other things. And so yeah, so Don has been on. You know, quite a few other guests there. You joined the alum there. So episode 99 alum again to the podcast there. So yeah. So Michael, what as we start getting ready to wrap up here, what do you want people to check out? Right. So here's the shameless plugs. Here's where you want people to go do this or listen to that or whatever. So here's the
Yeah. So if you want a custom drum, to go to the website and send me a message. Let me know what you want. If you got an idea about something, let me know. You know, like I said, check out the episode of the Process podcast that we're posting an episode. I'm trying to post one once a week. Sometimes it goes a week and a half, depending how busy I am. But I do try to keep the episodes coming and fresh. If it's not every once a week, it's every other week, you know. And they're about 45 minutes long, and just, you know, that's the biggest thing right there. It's called the Outlaw Process.
All right.
But
Yeah. Yep.
I'm going to be checking out all your stuff, too.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. So outlawdrums.com.
Yep, outlawdrums.com.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So
you can just, from right there, you should just contact us, and just, you know, that's be exactly how you can contact us.
and then from there, the website, you've got all the other links to
Yep.
everything else.
Everything right there on the
social media,
website.
whatever.
You can go to you could check out the podcast up there. You can see what we got going on. Everything is right there, self-included in the website.
All right. And you got a Patreon site too.
Patreon
right?
too. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's kind of what helps our podcast and stuff like that too. So that's those donations like that. It just kind of helps. You know, just like you said, man, this is a lot to do all this stuff and gear.
Yep.
And I'm wanting to update. I'm still using the gear that I've got 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Like that sucker right there is old. I think it's older than that. But I'm just, you know, I want to.
Yeah.
It costs money to do this stuff.
Exactly. And, you know, yeah, we may have our other activities for, you know, quote unquote income. I know I guess I should say I was fortunate in the sense of, you know, if I look at things in perspective of, you know, let's just say the major portion of my income. Yeah, I was fortunate that I haven't had a occupation job that, you know, didn't take a beating during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of other folks, unfortunately, you know, it was very rough for them, for companies, small companies too, or whatever. And heck, some of them turned lemons into lemonade and became YouTube stars and TikTokers, and because you're sitting at home and the government's sending you money and you got an iPhone and you start doing stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so because you got nothing else, because you couldn't leave your house, right? So with a lot of that too. Yeah. So yeah, no, we're definitely we'll get some creative stuff there and looking forward to you. Definitely glad I got a chance to meet you. Glad to come up here and
collab, man.
Collab for sure. Yes, that's
you're
right.
the very first. I'm telling you, man. I feel in my spirit, man. I definitely feel this ain't the last time we're gonna see you guys.
Oh no, for sure. And I think when I reached out to you, you're like, oh, we can do it over Zoom, and I'm like, no. I said, I want to come up. I want again, as I always talk about, and I think I may have posted on the Instagram story this morning. This was like, you know, Guy Fieri and diners, drive-ins, and dives in his Camaro driving around to restaurants and you know, stopping and talking to owners. And Sammy Hagar had a very similar show. And I think Sammy Hagar and Guy Fieri is the same person, actually. That blonde hair, and but he had a show also where he drive around and go meet musicians, and it was a very similar show. It was like the opposite of Daryl's house, where Daryl's show was at his house, but yet where Sammy went to somebody else's house, kind of, and talked to him. So I was like, that's what I need. That's what I want to do. I need to travel to places, like here and tomorrow, our episode tomorrow, and so forth. But that takes money, right? So Discovery Channel, if you're listening, I've got a great show idea here, so let me know.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So, all right, well, cool. I think that's it. Again, so if you're listening to the podcast here, watching on YouTube, we're going to drop on the same day. So if you're listening to it, definitely check out the YouTube version of it. You see what's all going on here on the audio version of it. And rate, review, subscribe. That's an important thing of, again, for all the podcasters that you probably hear us all say that, is to rate the podcast, give it a review, like it, follow, all those things. And social media and everything. And anywhere that we have something going on, definitely go follow it. And we just finally, in Drums and Rums, just finally figured out how to set up a Patreon thing. I think I've been talking about we had a Patreon site for like ever, and I didn't realize I actually had properly even set it up all the way to tell people to do anything with. So we do have at least a tier, a starter tier out there. So check it out, Patreon, Drums and Rums, and then check it out there to kind of help support the podcast if you're interested in supporting us and going forward. So again, I think we're doing, and like I said, you definitely got to check out the Airbnb. We'll post some stuff on that, and check it out there. Go the cottage, the hideaway, and you're out here in the Mother Nature and quietness, right, in the wilderness. So, well, Michael, yes,
brother,
yes,
thank you, man.
You got it, man. So let's definitely hang out a little bit there, so y'all can just have to watch the other content we got floating out there, what we're going to do next on afterwards. So again, I appreciate everybody. Thank you all. Have a great evening wherever you are. Have a great night, and see ya.
Peace. Yeah.